If a child leaves the home and begins to live in fornication, would God want us to separate from them just as anyone else in the world? Yes. If they are claiming to be a Christian, if your child says, I'm a Christian, I'm born again, and they're living in fornication, the Bible makes it very clear that we are to separate from any brother that walks unruly, that is, a railer or a drunkard or a fornicator or a covetous person. And that includes your children. And that's not popular, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying that. Besides just the fact that, kids knowing that that's the consequence will help keep them on the straight and narrow. I mean, think about how many Mormons there are, or how many Amish and Mennonite there are that don't leave their false religion because they know that if they do, their entire family will ostracize them. And that works as a great incentive to keeping them in their false religion. Of course, it doesn't help their soul. But there is a strong draw there to not want to break family ties. And you will do the right thing because you don't want to pay for it by being cut off from fellowship with your family. I'm not saying not to spend any time with them, but it should be very limited, and it should be, the Bible says not to even eat with them. So it's not a thing where you fellowship with them. It's just a thing of you keep a thread with that child, but you're not celebrating holidays with them, you're not inviting them over, these kinds of things. Now, of course, I don't have an adult child, so somebody could say, well, how do you know you don't have that? And it is true, I don't. I'm sure it would be very difficult. But the Bible is true regardless of whether or not I've personally had to experience such a situation. Besides that, the other factor is that more than just with a Christian who's backslidden off of the street, when it's your own family, you might have younger children in the home that are going to follow the oldest sibling. And if you think of the oldest sibling as like being the engine on a train, and all the other kids behind it are, more cars behind that same engine, it is really, really important how that first child turns out, because they're kind of setting the tracks, as it were. And if that first child, that oldest child, already goes off the rails, there's a greater chance that the second one will. And when the second one does, there's an even greater chance that the third one will, and so on. Whereas if you have somebody who's leading the way, and firstborns are typically, leaders and assertive. If you have the firstborn and they set a good pattern, then it's easier for the next person to follow in their tracks, and they don't have to blaze a new trail. So just because of that, it's also important, if you have a child that is living a wicked life, that is living in a way that you would not want your other children to follow, I do believe it is crucial that you strongly and strictly restrict the access that they have to younger children. Because, the sin can have a certain appeal, and it when children go through their teen years and they're awkward and they're questioning, then of course a rebellious teen sibling who seems to be enjoying the pleasures of sin for a season might seem more appealing than fuddy-duddy mom and dad. So I would be very, very cautious with that. So if they leave the home, I would severely restrict the fellowship with them, yes. I'm going to answer a couple more questions that were from the blog, and I'm going to go back